Hamas militants broke through barriers around Gaza and roamed at will, killing scores of civilians in Israeli towns. Analysts are flagging intelligence gaps which undermined what was thought to be an aggressive and successful layered approach towards Gaza by Israel. Israeli agencies and defense chiefs are facing growing questions over how the disaster could have happened. Citing a source close to Hamas, news agency Reuters stated the militant group conducted a years-long campaign to manipulate Israel. Hamas fooled Tel Aviv into believing it was not aiming for an armed conflict. Since inflicting heavy damage on Gaza in a 10-day war in 2021, Israel had adopted a mix of carrot and stick approach to maintain stability in the Gaza Strip. It offered economic incentives, including thousands of work permits allowing Gazans to work in Israel or the West Bank. At the same time, it maintained a tight blockade and a constant threat of airstrike. Israel thought the approach was keeping the militant group in check. However, the Hamas fighters were conducting drills in plain sight and even constructed a mock Israeli settlement in Gaza. According to an Egyptian intelligence official, Cairo repeatedly warned Tel Aviv. However, the official said the Israeli officials were more focused on the West Bank and ignored the threats from the Gaza Strip. The attack also poses a question on the U.S. intelligence services. U.S., which is now deploying warship and fighter jets near Israel, once said the situation in West Asia is now leave and let leave. Once again, the situation in Asia is now leave and let leave. Days before the attack, National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan pulled out a long list of positive developments in West Asia, highlighting that these developments are allowing the Biden administration to focus on other regions and problems.
Sorry to keep you waiting. There's a lot going on.
On Thursday, the president will travel to New
Former Information Minister for the Palestinian government and now represents the National Palestinian Initiative, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti, is joining us live from Ramallah, Palestine. Dr. Mustafa, welcome to We On Wild is One. First of all, I want to get your reaction to the situation of the continuous barrage of rockets into Israel and the retaliation. In your view, what does Hamas really want? What's the end game here?
What Hamas wants and what they declare is what all Palestinians want, which is the end of Israeli illegal occupation of Palestinian land. What Palestinians want is the end of this conflict. What we want is to be free from the system of oppression, of occupation, of enslavement. And what we want is to lift the siege on Gaza, which is totally inhuman, depriving people from water, depriving people from electricity, depriving children from treatment, depriving patients with cancer from the chance to be treated for their illnesses. What we want is a decent life. We want what you want, freedom and independence. We want what Indian people got, which is freedom from the British colonial system. What we live in during the last 75 years is a system of settler colonialism. And what we want is to be free from that. All the problems that you see today, all the victims that have fallen, whether Palestinians or Israelis, are the result of the continuation of the system of occupation and apartheid against the Palestinian people.
Dr. Mustafa, if what Hamas is doing, taking Israelis as hostages, taking foreigners as hostages, there are reports that over 250 people, most of them civilians and foreigners. We also saw the harrowing video of a German woman killed and paraded on the back of a van. If all of these are not acts of terrorism, then how would you describe that?
Okay, you spoke about hostages. Let me explain. First of all, Hamas has just offered to release all civilian prisoners in their hand immediately in exchange of releasing 45 Palestinian women who are in Israeli jails. They also offered to release all the military prisoners of war who are now in their custody in exchange of releasing the 5,300 Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails, including some who have been in jail for 43 years. That is, I think this will immediately solve this problem. But more than that, I think everybody on the Palestinian side, including Hamas, will be ready for an immediate ceasefire and an initiation of a process that would end the conflict by ending occupation. But what Netanyahu has done since he came to power in 2006 is to kill Oslo process, to kill the peace process, and he took a map. He presented a map of Israel in the United Nations 2 weeks ago, declaring the annexation of the West Bank and Gaza Strip, which are occupied territories, as well as the Golan Heights. And he did that in the United Nations. He declared that he will liquidate the Palestinian issue by just normalizing relations with the Arab world. So what he is offering is continuous enslavement of the Palestinian people. That cannot work. You cannot have security for Israelis and no security for Palestinians. What we can have is security for everybody. What we can have is peace for everybody. At this very moment, you spoke about Israeli victims, fine. But you also should mention that at this very moment, 510 Palestinian civilians were killed by Israeli bombardment of Gaza by airplanes and airstrikes, including 100 children and no less than 65 women. And the airstrikes continue. Whole families have vanished. You're talking about a family of 17 people. The grandfather, the grandmother, the father, the mother, all the children were all eliminated by Israeli airstrikes. I would even say that these airstrikes by Israel are a threat to the Israeli prisoners who are there in Gaza today. So what we need immediately is total and complete total ceasefire immediately,
Right.
exchange of prisoners immediately, and then initiate a process that would lead to the end of the Israeli occupation. This way, everybody can have peace.
Okay, let's talk about that peace process then. Dr. Mustafa, if a cessation of hostilities is to be reached between Hamas and Israel, who is the right person, organization, nation to broker the peace or mediate, and why? And give us a brief response to that.
The PLO is ready to represent the Palestinians, and Hamas would accept that. The PLO on one side, Israel on the other side, but it has to be an international context in which international law would be respected. What we need is a fair mediator, not a mediator that is biased to Israel like the United States.
All right, I've been talking to former information minister for the Palestinian government and now represents the National Palestinian Initiative, Dr. Mustafa Barghouti. Thank you for talking to We On Wild as One today.
Thank you so much.